I'm done trying to live up to others' expectations. Family, society, class, race, sex, or religions. It's time to break free from the isms that make us feel like we're in prison. I'm ready to be unleashed as fuck. I'm ready to be unleashed as fuck. Tired of the madness, done with the sadness. Gonna break free and be unleashed.
Okay, last week we talked about shame as the original leash. And this week we're going to go a little deeper, especially because shame isn't just personal. It's been weaponized and used to control women, especially in religion.
That's right. We're talking about spiritual shame, moral shame, and the way so many of us were taught to feel guilty just for existing. If you've ever felt like your body, your voice, or anything that you desire or want for made you bad, this one's for you.
Ooh, gives me the shivers. You're listening to Unleashed AF, podcast that rips off the mask even when it hurts, and exposes the leash and challenges you to lead with your full damn power. I'm Deidre Beecham, Power Voice Catalyst. For women who are done with their nice girl training, just done. You're done with it. You're like, stop it. I don't want any more of this people pleasing stuff. I left a religious cult, came out after 20 years in marriage, and spent 27 months rewiring my brain and healing my nervous system. Now I help women to stop performing, trash that nice girl training, and step into their full power.
And, I love that you say you help people rewire, or you went through that process of really rewiring your nervous system, because that's really what it's like. It's kind of what it boils down to for me. And I'm Jenny Batting, everyone. I'm a certified hypnotherapist, coach, human factors engineer, and liberator of your subconscious superpowers. I help people understand and unleash what's already inside them so that they can stop sabotaging and start soaring. And together, we're here to strip back the BS, call out the leashes, and explore what it really means to be free in your body, your voice, and your damn life. So if you love what we're about, you can hit follow, subscribe, like, all those kinds of things, share, drop your thoughts in the comments or at our website, unleashedafpodcast.com. You can go to the WWJDD page there, which is What Would Jenny and Deidre Do? And give us feedback or suggestions or ideas for other shows in the future. We are here for the truth. We're here for the rebellion. And we're here for your authentic and unleashed life.
Yeah. And that's awesome. And, and it's interesting because, we go through all these different aspects and parts of our life. And then suddenly it just breaks open that everything you've been taught is just really made you get into a place that's really tough to get out of. And shame's just one of those things.
Yeah.
In this episode, we're calling this When Shame is Called Holy, How Religion Weaponizes Obedience. I love that title. I just love it. Shame is absolutely used in religion. It is used to varying degrees depending on the religion that you are partaking in. It can change within that religion from pastor to pastor, preacher to preacher, whatever you call your person, pastor to pastor. It can vary, but it is, it definitely, there's so many rules about your body. There's rules about marriage. I know for myself, there are really, really strict rules for dating. And so when, for example, I guess we should wait for the examples, but we'll get back to that. I just said there were some crazy rules that went along with it. And when I've told people outside of the church that I belong to, it seems a little nutty. And all of it is meant to keep people under control and under control of some unknown entity. And a lot of times it's not God, although God is used as that. And a lot of shame is used.
Yeah.
And, and before we get into the nuts and bolts, I was kind of going there, but if we were getting to the nuts and bolts, Jenny, let's talk about why it matters. I mean, why are we even talking about the shame in religion?
Well, first of all, I think, one thing I've noticed, I mean, I've not actively participated in a ton of different religions. It's been more as an observer of different religions. I was raised Catholic myself. More recently, I was involved in Unity, which is a New Thought church. And that was definitely very different than my experience growing up in Catholicism. And one thing that taught me was there's a big difference between religion and spirituality.
Yes.
And so a lot of people will immediately take offense or get on the defensive if you start talking about their religion as if it's a bad thing to have religion, when really the organized religion thing is really what puts a lot of that shame and a lot of the control and the guilt and all that kind of stuff. Spirituality itself is not in that same house.
And you can be religious and not spiritual. And you can be spiritual and
Well,
not
you're right.
You
Right.
can.
Yeah,
You can be both. And you can be religious and spiritual. You can.
True. Yes.
And a lot of times, though, the spirituality overtakes what's going on in the religion, because spirituality allows you to, the focus is more on going inside and figuring yourself out. And
Right.
out of that and reconciling yourself, there's an outpouring out. But that whole process, spirituality allows you to have a discerning look at things.
Yes.
But anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, another thing that I've noticed about the varying organized religions, not spirituality per se, but religion specifically, is that a common theme is that there's always a patriarchal head of household, I guess you would say, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big part of what the difference is between just spirituality and organized religion. Mm-hmm. Spirituality can be anyone, anywhere, having a spiritual moment. Organized religion is almost exclusively led by a man at some point,
mm-hmm.
which potentially is part of why the layers of shame came into play, so that man could stay in control or stay at the head. Not just one man, but whoever was taken over needed to be a man.
Men.
Just
men in general.
Yep.
And when we say that, this isn't about male bashing. This isn't about male bashing at all. This is about what we're talking about is the system that puts men at the top and everybody else underneath, and that everybody has to follow what the male says and the rules that the male comes up with. And for a lot of religions, and definitely mine was more cultish, at least it was investigated for being a cult, the rules were very, very strict. And what we're seeing now, we're seeing all across the country just this rampant kind of push for Christian nationalism, which is just ugly, because it's not, it takes all of the worst aspects of religion and blows them up.
Yeah. And really contains very little actual spirituality.
Yes. It's about following rules, being compliant, and
being dominant even, right? I mean, dominating over other religions, dominating over other cultures, all of that.
Sure. And I can tell you, the Christian nationalism is so much more closely related to cult-like thinking. For example, with Christian nationalism and Project 2025, right? It's all about, this is what we hear from Christian nationalists, is there's too many people coming across the border. We need to get the people that don't look like us out of here. It's all us and them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Us and them. And we'll get even deeper. You start seeing, it's white us and everybody else. It starts turning into this ugly racism issue that comes up with it as well.
Right.
I can tell
Which
you.
is so interesting. When you think back, For anybody that has brain cells to rub together, Jesus wasn't white. I mean, it's pretty obvious. He's
Couldn't
from
be.
the middle. He was in the Middle East. And so he, it's just so.
And, you know, and here's something that's really interesting that you pointing that out. When I went to, as you know, I went to Italy last year, the end of last year, and we went to Vatican City.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the, I can't remember which building it was. There's so many buildings, but one of the buildings that we were in, it was all art. And the art went way, way back, early. And the very earliest depictions of Jesus, you know, when it's from, 1200, year 1200 or 500, right? The year 500. So the earlier you see pictures depicted of Jesus, the darker he is.
Mm-hmm.
And as you go through the hallway, Jesus starts getting lighter and lighter and lighter.
Mm.
And so Jesus got turned white.
Yeah.
Kind of like Michael Jackson.
I was just thinking.
I couldn't help myself.
Oh my gosh. Oh, Jesus got the vitiligo. Oh, that's funny.
Jesus, the man in the mirror. Yeah, so he got whiter and whiter and whiter. And that you can see that as you go into the church. And the church went through a whole period of time where they were, the Crusades, killing all kinds of people in the name of Christ, right? We're going around killing people. Jesus never attacked anybody except Christians, except people that said that they were following him. He never went after people that didn't follow him. Okay, we're getting off course here.
Yeah. We digress.
We digress. So sorry. Back to the problem at hand. Shame.
Yeah.
We're supposed to be talking about shame.
Yeah. Well, and the way shame plays into this is it's a control mechanism, right? Whether it's for Christian nationalists or just for any one particular religious faction, you could say, they don't want to die off. So they use the tools of shame and guilt to keep people in the fold. We talked about that a little bit last week, talking about shame in general.
Yeah.
It kind of developed from when it was just a survival instinct. You were much more likely to be killed if you were out on your own versus in a group. So
sure. Yeah, but now what at least the church that I went to, if somebody wasn't following the rules, somebody wasn't doing all the things they're supposed to be doing, maybe they weren't tithing, maybe they kept rebelling against their husband, maybe they wouldn't keep their kids in line. I mean, maybe they dressed flamboyantly. There's so many rules.
Yeah.
Read a book you're not supposed to. I mean, saw a movie. I mean, it was that stark. And if somebody didn't follow the rules after a certain period of time, because there were all these rules about how that worked, if you didn't do something, then you were talked to by your Bible talk leader. If the Bible talk leader couldn't get through to you, then you go to your house church leader. We had a whole hierarchy. And so if the house church leader could not be, then it went to the, I was female, so to the preacher's wife. Don't go straight to the preacher. So it's the preacher's wife. So you talk to the preacher's wife. The preacher's wife can't help you. Then it goes to the regional leaders. I mean, it goes to the deacons. And then if the deacons decide you're a lost cause, keeping you in church is going to be divisive. And what they're basically saying is you're coming in and bringing thoughts that we don't want anybody else thinking. So you need to get out of here.
Yep.
And so they bring the person before the church, if they'll even do that, although some do. But they'll at least bring your name before the church and say, this person is no longer a part of our church. Please do not contact them for any reason. If they reach out to you, please do not talk to them or refer to our, whoever was supposed to be the point of contact. So the shame and the isolation. So just the idea and the whole reason for telling the whole group is, look, if you don't follow the rules, this is what's going to happen to you. We are going to make it so no one talks to you. And if you're talking to a group of people who have been with the church 5 years, 10 years, some growing up in the church and been with it for 20 years, and you tell them, we're going to kick you out and nobody can talk to you. These are the only people they know.
Yeah.
These are their friends. In a lot of cases, it's their family. It's their complete network of, what do you call it? Support. It's your whole support field. It's your whole support structure.
Yeah.
The shame of, that it's isolation, it's threat, but it's the shame. They shamed that person to make you think about the shame of what would happen if it happened to you.
Yeah.
The control is just insane.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't help but have that take me to, I think we mentioned last week that I've been watching, trying to catch up on Handmaid's Tale.
Yeah.
So that we can eventually talk about the more recent season that's happening now. And my God, the levels of shame and control that are used throughout that series are just next level. The episode I was just watching earlier today was all the handmaids were in a circle, and this happens at different times throughout the series, so it wasn't the only time, and whoever had done something wrong had to sit in the middle, and Aunt Lydia is saying, oh, whose fault was this? And what did they do? And so they just all point at him and say, sinner, sinner, sin. And I thought, oh my God, like how much more direct can you be in terms of trying to induce that shame?
Well, and I know that there are people that watch Handmaid's Tale and go, well, this is just something of her imagination. This is just the writer's imagination. But if you read, and I'm sure it's on some of the book's jackets now, because Handmaid's Tale was a book, started out as a book, and the author said, and Karen Atwood, no, what is her name? What is the author? Can you look that up while I'm doing this? So the author has said that every single thing that was in the book, which was the first season, the entire first season of Handmaid's Tale was based on the book that she wrote. She says nothing was in that book that hasn't been found and taking place somewhere in the world, either now or at some point in the past. So we're not talking about some fanciful ideas of what she thinks this crazy dystopian religious sect community that takes over part of the United States would be like. She's taken real examples. And I can say, even for myself, and I wasn't even in the craziest kind of cult. We know people who have been in worse cults than the one I was in. But shame was built into everything about how you dress, what you eat. I remember getting married and coming back from our honeymoon. And I remember one of the married men, so basically the singles and the marrieds keep separate in our church. They kept separate. And then suddenly I was in with the married. So this married guy comes up to me and he says, wow, he said, you look gorgeous. He said, you just lose a few pounds, you'd be even prettier. I just got married. I'm on a high. I was, and then my husband comes up to me and he says, hey, I was talking to Joe and he was saying that you would be gorgeous if you just dropped a few pounds. My brand new husband. And I look back at pictures. I wish I had one to show you. You'd be like, what was he saying?
Yeah.
I looked hot. But you're not allowed to say that. You're not allowed to think that. You're not allowed to do any of that. You're not allowed to, you could be sent home from church for not wearing the appropriate clothing. I remember going and saying something about my husband. I said, I really need some help because this is happening and he's doing this and I just need to know how how to work with this. And I was, so we use the term in the church called rebuked. So I was rebuked,
Mhm.
and which was basically a harsh talking to
Mhm.
about how I wasn't being subservient enough to my husband, and that I always needed to be thinking about what is best for him. And anytime he comes to me and says something that may hurt my feelings, I need to be remembering that that's not his intent. His intent is never to hurt me. His intent is only for my highest good. And so I
Mm.
need to listen. The shame, I mean, is just, where do you go? And so
Yeah.
women end up feeling trapped, but then what if I can't leave? And then you're in a marriage where it's a sin for you to leave your husband. This
Mhm.
sin. In our church, if you decided to get a divorce, the woman was kicked out of the church.
Regardless
I,
of what caused the divorce.
yeah. So it's just crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. So then is your ex-husband still involved in the church?
No, we both
Oh,
left.
okay.
We
Oh,
both
okay,
left,
gotcha.
thankfully. Yeah.
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 Yeah, I
But it
mean,
was,
even in Handmaid's Tale, they go so far as to not allow the women to read. And if you are found reading, they can cut off a finger or,
yeah.
something ridiculous like that. And not that we've gotten to that point in our country now, but if you think about the way they're making it more and more difficult for people to go to college or even they're starting to make it difficult for even people to get regular, like, public school education as they're
They're
reducing the
trying to
funding.
make it illegal. I think it was either Oklahoma, and I apologize. I probably have the state wrong, but there was a state that recently tried to pass a bill to restrict a woman from crossing out of the state. Basically, for women not to be able to leave the state that they're in, especially in search of health, in terms of healthcare. But basically,
Yeah.
that every woman that crosses the border, that they want to be able to find out why they're leaving the state. What? They're going to restrict women's movement? That's very
Yeah.
Handmaid's Tale.
Yeah. Very
I know
much so.
in the church that I went to, when I did leave, I left before they had a chance to kick me out. And when I left, I had no clue how to make a friend.
Mm.
I had built-in friends for 8, 9 years of my life in
Mhm.
church, because we weren't supposed to make friends outside of church.
Mm.
And any friend you did have, you needed to be evangelizing them.
Yeah.
And when you go out to meet people, it's not to make friends, it's to evangelize to them. And then once they become in the church, then you can be their friend.
Mm. Yeah.
And if anybody was a part of that church would be listening to this, they'd say, no, that's not it at all. That's not it at all. You are allowed to have friends, but why wouldn't you share the word of Christ with them? I
Right.
mean, that's like having a a cure for cancer and not and then hoarding it all to yourself.
Mhm.
That's what that's like. I mean,
Shame
is
on
that who
you.
you are?
Right.
Are
Literally,
you
shame
that
on you for
person?
doing that. Yeah.
Exactly. And so they won't use that word shame, but shame is in it
Mhm.
by using that analogy. Well, you're not that kind of person, are you? Haven't you
Yep.
heard of the parable of the talents? Do you remember what happened to the one that held on to the talents because he was fearful? Are you that person?
Mm. This does make more sense to me now as to why a Mormon family that I used to live down the street from would sometimes invite me over to dinner when they had missionaries there that they were treating to dinner, so that the missionaries could talk to me after dinner
Mhm.
about, the Mormon church and all that stuff. And I thought, oh, I thought I was just coming for dinner. Like, what? But
Not
I'm
for
sure it was
friendship.
because they had to
Only if you become a part of the
evangelize.
church,
Yep.
then they can be your friend.
Yep.
Mhm.
Crazy. And I will say, from the Catholic perspective, I don't feel like there was as much hierarchy in terms of getting forgiveness or dealing with someone who's done something against the commandments or whatever. Because it was pretty much, hey, we understand that you're going to sin, but you need to come into confession. So you confess, and it can be anonymously. You can go into the one where they can't really see you, or kind of you can't see, well, you can see them kind of, and just confess your sins, and then you'll be given something to do, an act of contrition, whatever it is.
Contrition.
That's supposed to sort of atone for what you did, which was usually like, say, 3 Hail Marys and an Our Father or something like that. Or do
and you're all good.
Yeah, and you're good. You're good for another week. But you're supposed to come, any week that you sin, you should come to confession, or else don't you dare go for communion. Because if you go for communion and you haven't confessed your sins, that's bad.
Sacrilegious.
Yeah.
Sinful.
Now, not that
in and of
anybody
itself.
was not that anybody was checking you at the door for and they didn't even, I don't even think the church does confessions anymore. Like at the church that I grew up in, the confessionals have been boarded up for a while. They were using a room in the back, and I'm not even sure what that's for anymore. But it was a more straightforward, oh, hey, come on in, do your confession, say a few Hail Marys, and you're good for the week. It's a clean slate. God's forgiven you. Which sometimes I thought was interesting, because there was a lady I used to work with when I came down here who wasn't always very nice to people at work. But I would see her at church every Sunday. And boy, she was down on her knees praying before service. And I'm like, somebody's trying to make up for the shit they pulled at work this past week. Like, I was just sitting there waiting for the songs to start, and she's down there go, oh.
But here's the part that I haven't quite been able to figure out. Although we do have a little video that kind of goes in and explains, I maybe answers this question. But the thing that I'm having a difficult time with is all the things that we grew up learning about. For those of us that did go to church when we were kids, about how it was all about love, and Jesus loves and forgives, and you need to love and forgive. You need to be accepting of people. Remember, judge not, for the plank on your shoulder could, be in somebody else's, so it's, or don't, what is it about the plank?
I don't know.
Don't worry about the plank in somebody else's shoulder when you have a plank in your own eye, or something like that. Anyway.
That was not a Catholic one.
Yeah,
we didn't have planks and eyes.
Something
we were
about
don't
plagues.
throw rocks in a glass house or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, like that. And how did we go from that to having, what was it? JD Vance came out, or Musk, somebody came out and said that empathy was evil.
Musk said that, yeah.
That what? I was like, what? Aren't we supposed to be empathetic? And I think that's the thing that is so hard for people who grew up with, well, isn't Jesus supposed to be about love? And then coming across all of these Christians who are full of hate and rage and
judgment, and
gun-toting and judgment, all of the things that we're told we weren't supposed to do. And I came across this video, and this gentleman talks about how religion actually screws with your morality. It actually messes up how you think about things that are good and bad in the world. And love to share this. Let me go ahead and pull this up.
I'm going to prove to you that religion is compromising you.
Sorry, I really need to do this. There we go.
I'm going to prove to you that religion is compromising your moral judgment. I'm going to tell you 2 stories, and I want you to raise your hand after each story. The first story is this, and these 2 stories are morally equivalent. Suppose I were to break into somebody's home, this loving Christian family, mother, father, and children, and pets. They go to church, they pray, they contribute to charity. They're really, really great people. And I tied them up, and I tortured them, and I drowned the cat in the bathtub, and I shoot the dog, and then I set the house on fire and killed all those people. And then the police asked me, Dan, why did you do that? And I would say, no reason, the devil made me do it. Raise your hands if you think I am a moral monster. Virtually every hand went up, right? Yeah, horrible, moral monster. How would he do? No reason, the devil made me do it. The second story was this. I got out my Bible and I opened the Bible to the book of Job. And you know what's coming. Remember how God tortured Job. He caused a wind to blow the building over. The wall crashed against those children, his children, his livestock and his animals. And it didn't say if he had a cat to drown, but he killed it all. And then God tortured Job with boils and horrible things that happened. If you want a magic bullet, by the way, that totally destroys Christianity in the Bible, you will find it in one Bible verse. It's the book of Job 2:3, the second chapter, verse 3. Let me read this to you. The Lord said unto Satan, have you considered my servant Job, that there is none like him in the earth, a blameless and an upright man, that fears God. He turns away from evil, and still he holds fast his perfection. He holds fast his integrity. God said this to Satan, and then he said, although you moved me against him to destroy him without cause. So God, why did you do this to Job? No reason. The devil made me do it.
Right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very interesting.
Yeah. And I was always suspicious of this concept of, oh, we know you're going to sin, but just, as long as you atone for it and, kind of apologize / confess it, you're good. God will forgive you. I thought, boy, that really gives people a long leash to do some nasty shit.
Well, and it gives you a long, it does give you a long leash, but the problem with the rules about how you are a good person always being something that you need to look at over here. You can't see my hand. That you need to look at over here.
Mm-hmm.
Then you are ignoring yourself and what you're thinking and feeling. And if every time you do share what you're thinking and feeling, you're told you're wrong, you need to follow this.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, you're so separate from yourself. There's a cognitive dissonance because you keep following this, you're ignoring your body, you get out of touch with yourself. It gets confusing, and it's so much easier for you to be led astray because you're separate from your intuition. You're separate from your gut. You've been told not to listen to your gut.
Yeah.
And it just disappears. And so it makes it so much easier to think you're doing good and then to find out, oh, no, not so much. You haven't been so good. From a moral standpoint.
Yeah.
And so we actually have a question based on that, just for reflection on all of this. Is where in your life have you confused obedience with goodness and lost yourself? And I don't know, did you come up with anything, Jenny?
I mean, gosh, that just seems like nice girl training at its core,
101.
right? So there's so many ways that shows up. Being the one that always reaches out to try to check in on the parents, taking time out of my life to go help them out with something, whereas, siblings may not be on that same page. I was just talking to my friend that I've known since kindergarten earlier today. She's in the same boat. She's got 2 brothers, neither one of which really check up on their parents hardly at all. And it's up to her to fly across country to help out when another one is like 2 hours away. So, it's disrupting her life to be the one that has to take care of that all the time. And similarly for me, flying up to Ohio to help with my parents when I'm the only one that'll do it.
And so that's kind of what, it's kind of like obedience to taking care of your family And it feels good at first, right? I mean, that's like, well,
Mhm.
I'm doing it, but then it can turn into, well, I'm the only one doing it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, now you MFers, why aren't you doing any of this?
Mhm.
And then there's this justification of, well, I'm the good person. And then there's this sense of superiority that comes with it. Well, I'm the good person, and now you aren't because you haven't been doing this.
Mhm.
And then that can lead to other things where you're like, well, now I can treat them this way because they've been treating me this way. Oh, all of a sudden, they're two different things.
Mhm.
And I'm
Yep.
wondering if that's part of what is happening with this whole Christian nationalism too. I don't know. It's just curious.
So, like tying that in, how? Help me see that connection. I'm not disagreeing
So
with you. I'm just wanting to see what you're
if
saying.
let's say that you've been part of church, you're following the rules, people
Yeah.
around you aren't following the rules. I'm following the rules.
Yep.
I'm following these rules, and I'm a good person because I'm following these rules. How come you don't have to follow these rules? Well, now I'm mad at you because you're not following these rules. Well, you know what? I'm
Mhm.
going to make you follow these rules, and then
Mhm.
we'll all be following the rules.
Right. And suffering together.
Let's suffer together.
Yeah. 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 That very much, certainly, I think that shows up through Handmaid's Tale again, because the wives, I think, are like, that's part of why they treat either the Marthas or the handmaids as harshly as they do at times, because if the handmaid goes and does something or gets to have something that the wife hasn't had, they're like, wait a minute, that's not fair.
I'm higher than you.
Right.
I should be treated better than you.
Right.
I'm going to treat you harshly so you know that I'm supposed to be treated better.
Yep.
It's so psychotic. It's just so
Yeah.
messed up.
Yeah, it really is. Crazy,
Wow.
crazy. And, an interesting situation that popped up for me somewhat recently in terms of a client that I had come in. This was an older gentleman. He had originally told me that he had a porn addiction that he needed help with. And so I'm like, sure, hypnotherapy can help with any kind of addictive behavior. As he came in, I find out more specifically that he has been a devout Catholic his entire life. And it wasn't just any kind of porn, it was gay porn that he was interested in. And so there was such a deep fear that he had, and it seemed that it was related to knowing he was near the end of his life and therefore going to, meet St. Peter sooner rather than later, and having to worry about is this showing up on his report card. So,
Right.
he was very concerned. And honestly, my first concern as he gave me more information was I was afraid he was going to ask me to make him not gay, because, gay is not something that is smiled upon in the Catholic Church exactly.
Yeah.
And I would have had to say no to that, because I can't bring myself to even attempt to do something like that for someone. I wouldn't fool them into thinking that was a thing that could be done. However, he was really more just concerned. He just wanted to stop that habit. And so, well, sure, that's a different thing. If that's what you want to stop doing, I can try to help you stop that addictive behavior. And so it was just it was really one of the situations that I've dealt with in terms of clients coming in to work on something that came closer to breaking my heart, because I felt so bad for this guy for feeling so much shame. So much of me wanted to say, you know what? You're just watching stuff. You're not acting on it. You're not doing anything. God's not going to care. You're still going to be okay. But, I couldn't say that to him, because he's got
That's not what he wanted.
Yeah. First of all, it's not what he was asking for. And second of all,
Yeah.
he's got decades of indoctrination into believing something different.
Mhm.
So,
And if it's what you believe, it's true for you.
right. Right. And like you said, he wasn't coming to me to change that belief.
Yeah.
If he had been, then we could have talked about that. But so it's really just something to be aware of and keep in mind if you feel like you've been carrying shame that was kind of implanted in you from a religious upbringing, or even as an adult. Sometimes you have to kind of jump through some hoops to go into a certain religion in order to marry someone who's in that religion. And if you've now kind of escaped that, but still have some of the scars internally, just like religion can implant those beliefs or those kind of concerns or seeds of shame in you, hypnotherapy can help remove them and plant different seeds of behavior and belief. So,
and I'm going to jump in real quick and just as a testimonial to you, Jenny, because you have helped me so much with just that, with helping me to overcome my nice girl training, with helping to rewire my brain, rewire my nervous system. And it's fantastic.
Yeah. And I mean, there's, different steps to it, and it depends on how deep those seeds have been planted. Certainly just being able to have the repetitive imagery of a recording that is planting new seeds of thought can be helpful. But sometimes it takes kind of going a step beyond that, doing an interactive protocol where we're trying to get rid of the subconscious self-sabotage, because when it goes deep, so deep that you identify with it, there's parts of your subconscious that are fully still believing that's the way to be. And they're trying to protect you by keeping you that way. Then we need to deal with that. We need to have a discussion, kind of re-educate or take the blinders off so that that part's not fighting against those changes that you're looking for. So,
right.
Certainly for anybody that feels like they're stuck in that situation, I would be happy to talk with you and help you get you started in a new direction. The easiest way to get started would be to go to my website, hypnotherapybyjenny.com, and to schedule right on the home page, there should be a button. There's also a whole page about scheduling, but there's a button on the home page to schedule a phone consult so that we can talk about how we can get started. But that's the type of thing that I do work with clients on a pretty regular basis, is planting those new seeds of belief, regardless from where the old seeds came from.
Yeah.
But certainly religion is
is one of them.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, I remember back when I was getting my training, our lead instructor said that in his, I think 16 years at that point, 16 years of experience doing hypnotherapy, he said if it wasn't for Catholic nuns and the family dinner table, hypnotherapy wouldn't be necessary.
That's hilarious.
Shame and guilt.
That's
and
hilarious.
Fear around those
well,
things.
Fortunately for you, they are still there. And also there are so many other places that we get shame and get our wires all messed up in our heads. So yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah.
So we're going to, I don't know we want to run this whole thing. It's 7 minutes long. I didn't realize how long it was, but we'll maybe play a couple minutes of it and then put it on our Facebook page.
Sure. Yeah.
But this is definitely worth watching the entire thing of George Carlin. And actually, I think, Jenny, you sent this to me.
Yeah.
And it's just so fantastic. As Jenny was saying earlier before the show, she said, George Carlin was just way ahead of his time. And he was.
Yeah.
It was just,
we weren't ready for him.
Brilliant. Just brilliant. And he has so many. But this is all about the 10 Commandments. And we'll play a few minutes of it.
Yeah.
Oh, here. Well, let me get over to do the media presentation.
Oh.
Here we go.
The 10 Commandments. Here's my problem. Why are there 10? You don't need 10. I think the list of commandments was deliberately and artificially inflated to get it up to 10. It's a padded list. Here's what they did. About 5,000 years ago, a bunch of religious and political hustlers got together to try to figure out how to control people, how to keep them in line. They knew people were basically stupid and would believe anything they were told, so they announced that God had given them some commandments. Up on a mountain, when no one was around, God had given them the 10 Commandments. But let me ask you this. When they were sitting around making this shit up, why did they pick 10? Why 10? Why not 9 or 11? I'll tell you why. Because 10 sounds official. 10 sounds important. They knew if it was 11, people wouldn't take it seriously. Say, what, are you kidding me? The 11 Commandments? Get the fuck out of here. But 10 sounds important. 10 is the basis for the decimal system. It's a decade. It's a psychologically satisfying number. The top 10, the 10 most wanted, the 10 best dressed. So having 10 commandments was really a marketing decision. And to me, it's clearly a bullshit list. It's a political document artificially inflated to sell better. I'm going to show you how you could reduce the number of commandments and come up with a list that's a little more workable and logical. We're going to start with the first 3, and I'll use the Roman Catholic version because those are the ones I was taught as a little boy. I am the Lord thy God. Thou shalt not have strange gods before me. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain. Thou shalt keep holy the Sabbath. Right off the bat, the first 3, pure bullshit. Sabbath day, Lord's name, strange gods. Spooky language. Spooky language. Designed to scare and control primitive people. In no way does superstitious nonsense like this apply to the lives of intelligent, civilized humans in the 21st century. You throw out the first 3 commandments, you're down to 7. Next, honor thy father and mother. Obedience, respect for authority. Just another name for controlling people. The truth is, obedience and respect should not be automatic. They should be earned. They should be based on the...
Yeah. I love George Carlin. It goes on and on, but it's just fantastic. Yeah. We'll definitely load that up to our Facebook page. But yeah, that's controlling. It's all about control, and it's a nice light way of looking at the 10 Commandments.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Look
so
at
we
have, him, man. You know, if he was around today, boy,
he'd be on fire.
He'd be selling out football stadiums.
Yeah, he would. I believe so. So we have a little challenge for the week. And let's see. So this week, we want to dare you to analyze your spiritual belief system. Whether it's religious or not, just kind of examine it. Mm-hmm. Does it feel like you? Okay. And again, we don't have an agenda to get everybody out of religion, but we want to make sure that, open up your eyes to what is happening. Are you in a good place? Are you in a place where it does feel like you? Or what does it say here? So does it feel like you're supposed to think and feel a way? Or are you allowed to think and feel how you do in your gut? I mean, take a real good gut check. Sit down with yourself and just kind of think about it. Is this, and if it is where you want to be and it does feel like you, awesome. Mm-hmm. But if it's not, question it. Why? Why is this not sitting exactly right? What is going on? Right. Are there some issues? Are other people having some of the same issues you do? Talk to a trusted friend. Pay attention to how you feel, so that you can figure out what you need to do. Because so much of religion is all, this is how you need to think. Don't care how you feel. So it's really important. Get in touch with how you feel, because the only way you can figure out what your intuition is to get back in touch with your body and how you feel. Yeah. And start being true to yourself. And you want to give the example of one of the things you can do?
I think this was the same example from last week. Yeah.
Well, you know what? It's worth repeating. You want to just go ahead and we can go ahead and do that one too, because I think it is a great way to get in touch with yourself.
Yep. Yeah. So the example again, I think similar to last week, if not the same, was about looking in the mirror and learning to love your reflection. And so I guess this week we could take it to maybe a deeper level than just physically, but really look yourself in the eye, like looking into your own soul. And do you love what you see? You know, checking yourself, really making sure that you feel comfortable with who you are inside and out.
And we could also add into there about, ask yourself when you're talking about, when we're asking you to think about your religion and how you're feeling inside of it, this is a way to do it. Look at yourself in the mirror, be
Mhm.
with yourself, and ask yourself, am I in the right place? Am I making the right decision for me? And if you
Yeah.
are, great. But if you aren't, find out what you need to do.
Yeah.
Jenny just met somebody the other week who that's all he does is he talks to people. Didn't we talk about this last week? All he does is talk to people who are escaping. No, I think we talked about it behind the scenes, who are escaping. But I told you my history, who are
Yeah.
leaving a church and need to deconstruct
Yeah.
from it, need to get back in touch with themselves. And that's one of the things he does. Both Jenny and I do that. We just don't only do that. He focuses
Right.
on that. And, but we both do that as well.
Mm-hmm. And
We still,
another thing
yeah.
I would say that can be helpful in that kind of self-reflection is to give yourself a moment to put yourself in someone else's shoes. You know, something that I don't think I even took debate in high school, but I knew about it. I knew there was like a debate team, and
Mhm.
I knew kind of how they worked. I knew that you had to represent sometimes something that maybe wasn't really what you believed, but somebody had to represent it. So you had to learn to like defend an idea that wasn't your own.
Ooh.
And the idea of putting yourself into that position can really help you understand how people come from different perspectives in life. And so
Yeah,
that can be something
I'm gonna
that can
give a
be,
quick example about this if you don't
yeah,
mind.
yeah.
So when I was going to this particular church, one of the things that they taught was that we were the only people chosen by God, the only ones. Everybody else who was not a part of our church was going to hell. And I remember going, well, wait a minute. Wait a minute. So what if you've lived an incredibly righteous, wonderful, giving life? What if you have, and you've just never met somebody so that you could convert to religion? Well, that's really up to God to decide. But what does that say about you? Doesn't that just incentivize you even more to tell people about this? And that's even a bigger reason to bring people into the church
Hmm.
because we don't know. I mean, as far as everything we're reading says we're the only ones.
Right.
So if the word of the Bible is the unerring true word of God, then I mean, it's really in God's hands, but do you really want to risk that
Mm.
with your family and your friends and people of the world who are good? Wouldn't you want to bring them into the family and into the fold?
Hmm.
Shame, shame, shame,
Right.
shame.
Right. Yeah. And I
Anyway,
think that's probably true of a lot of religions, because I felt that vibe, at least from the Catholic faith as well, that as long as you were baptized Catholic, your ticket was punched.
yeah.
You were good. And which is why they baptized at such a young age. We were talking about this offline, I
Yeah.
think, last
Mhm.
week or earlier this week. Um, and there was definitely a difference in terms of the Catholic idea of baptizing young when they're still a baby versus in your church that you went to, we
Yeah,
baptized very
we
young.
didn't baptize until children were at an age where they could make where we felt, I think it felt pretty arbitrary because it wasn't an age. It all depended on the person. And that was good because they took different people into account. Are you in a place where you can make a lifelong decision about what it is that you're doing?
Hmm.
And we believed that because we were taught, let me put it that way, we were taught and then hence believed that um, Jesus died on the cross for all sin up to that point. So original sin, there's no such thing, which Catholics believe in original sin. And we didn't believe in original sin because we're like, well, look in the Bible. When Jesus died on the cross, he died for all sin. So original sin gone. That was the whole thinking. And so there was absolutely no reason to baptize a 6-year-old, an 8-year-old. They can't make lifelong decisions. They're still thinking about Santa Claus. Well, actually, not in our church. Not in our church. We didn't talk about Santa Claus because that would be a lie.
Oh,
We talked about the Jesus being born. And Christmas had been taken over by those people who didn't believe and are trying to take Christ out of Christmas.
yes.
Yes, we were those people. We were the Christ out of Christmas people. You heathens. Oh, keep in mind that we are still wanting you to please, please, please help keep our democracy in check. Sign up for the journalstrikeus.com. There's 5calls.org for you to make phone calls right
I
now.
need to get on that. I've not been good at making my calls, but I need to do that.
I need to get much better. And then where is the Mobilize Us? Do we have that one? Yes. Love this one. It has some great opportunities for you to get out and get involved in your community, which is so, so very important. We need our communities and we need to be able to support each other.
Yes.
Next week's episode, we're going to continue with shame. Oh, yay. This is such a big topic. Shame is used in so many different aspects. So next week, we're going to focus a little bit more on social shame and how you can break free from it, break free from social shame. And
or even recognize it to begin with. I mean, I think because society is sort of everywhere and all around us, it's hard sometimes to realize that that's where the shame has come from. Peer pressure, I think, is one of the things that would fall under social shame. And people are driven by peer pressure more than they realize. So
I think one of the, I like to call it the rules of polite society. And that if you don't follow the rules of polite society, that, this shame is certainly used to enforce that stuff. Hey, if you enjoyed today's episode, subscribe, follow, share, please. And got a topic, or if you want to be a guest, or you got a question, go to www.jdd. Oh, first I should tell you the website. Go to unleashedafpodcast.com and then visit www.jdd, which is what would Jenny and Dieter do. And we'd love to hear from you. I think that's just about it. You have anything else you want to share, Jenny?
No, I think that covered. I mean, obviously, we could go on. We talked earlier this week when we were planning the podcast. We talked for probably an hour and a half.
I think I was pretty darn close at 2 hours, and we're like, oh my gosh, we have to keep this little under the.
There's so much more that we could go into, but hopefully that at least kind of gave you guys some things to think about, some different perspectives to consider, and to kind of hopefully make sure that you're not getting on a retractable leash drawn into some sort of organized religion. Again, we are in no way opposed to spirituality. We're both fully spiritual people ourselves. But organized religion has tainted that. And so it's good to at least have your eyes open to what's going on so that you don't get sucked in.
Absolutely. And just a reminder, as we leave today, you're not too much. You're not broken. But the system certainly is. You're unleashing, and we want you to keep going. Take care.
I'm done trying to live up to others' expectations. Family, society, class, race, sex, or religions. It's time to break free from the isms that make us feel like we're in prison. I'm ready to be unleashed as fuck. I'm ready to